What do you do if your heart feels heavy, or there's things weighing on your mind, or the opposite of that, and you're feeling really good and really grateful? What do you do with all of that? And especially, what do you do with that if you're not a religious person? I am not, and yet I have this instinct to let it go to something larger than myself. And although I'm not a believer in a traditional religious way, I want to do something with that. And I want to share that practice with you today that I call Hello Universe. For those of you that have a prayer practice, this might be similar, and you could actually use this same practice. I remember learning about this when I learned about God boxes in the 90s. And I don't remember who was the inventor of that, but maybe you do, and you may have heard of it. And it's similar. I don't get hung up, or that's not true. I don't get hung up now on the concept of God. I have always been totally okay with whatever you believe. If that's what you believe, I think that's great. But for someone like me who was raised Unitarian, that just wasn't part of my upbringing. And although I understand the concept of it, I didn't have that as part of my practice. And then I read and am recently rereading The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, and she has a really great example of what God is. And I'm going to read this quickly to give you a sense of what this means in a much bigger context. And then I'm going to show you my Hello Universe practice. She says in here that she is thinking about the great creator. And she says that could sound a little too Native American, a little more appropriation than necessary. It might sound too Christian. It might sound too New Age. She even goes on to say it could sound stupid or simple-minded or threatening. And she said just to let go of the concept. She says that just to think great creator, whatever that is. And then she goes on to say, and I really enjoyed this, she says, the word God might be volatile for you. If you had an unworkable or unpleasant or unbelievable idea of God around your childhood upbringing. And she says, still to become open-minded. And then she goes on to say, to remind yourself not to get hung up by semantics. And when she thinks about the word God, and this is where my big aha came on, like, oh, right. She says you could substitute the words good, orderly direction or flow. But good, orderly direction is G-O-D, God, right? So when we think about it, we can think about it as creative energy. We can think about it as shorthand for the goddess or mine, or in my case, universe, source, higher power, whatever you want to use. I will say, even though I might not be a believer, I do believe there's something bigger going on that I can comprehend. It is an amazing, chaotic world universe that we live in. And I think there is something about tapping into that. So let me show you my practice now that you know that there's this sort of wide range of what universe and or God or good orderly direction could mean for you. This is my Hello Universe box. It is just a shoebox that I painted. And it says, Hello Universe. And then I painted yes and, and then help, thanks, wow, which is a nod to Anne Lamott. If you are familiar with her, she has written many books, memoirs and books on writing. And she has this great book about these are the most universal prayers, help, thanks, and wow. And so I put those on the side. And in this box is the practice. So you open the box, and inside the box are letters to the universe. And on the back are haiku, but that's a different practice. So we'll talk about that another time. But in this box, I just write letters to the universe. Hello, universe. I'm thinking about a friend who's going through a hard divorce. I'm going through a difficult time with my own friends, or I'm thinking about a friend who is dealing with depression or having trouble with their children or doing long-term care for their family members. And I just write those on a 4x6 card and I put it in the box. That's the practice. It's actually a practice in letting go. So if you're someone like me and you have anxiety, you can ruminate about these things in your head over and over and over. And what I found was by writing them down and physically putting them in the box, I no longer were thinking about them. I could let it go. And it's a physical act to a mental, clarity is what I was looking for. And although I could just say these things out loud, there's something about writing it down and then putting it in the box that makes it feel more. There's a ritual to it. It feels more special. It feels more important. It feels like I've taken the time to think about these things with my whole heart. And I really encourage you to develop a practice like this. It doesn't have to be a pink box, although this brings me so much joy. It could be that you write something on the sidewalk with chalk. It could be a Post-it note. It could be a notebook. It could be that you say these things into a voice recording on your phone. The whole idea of it, I think, is twofold. It's one, that there's a ritual involved in it, that you have a practice. And that practice can be whatever it is for you. For me, it's Hello Universe. But for you, it could be something else. But you have a ritual, you have a practice that you're doing around these feelings and these thoughts. And then the second part of it is that you, after you do it, you give yourself permission to let it go. And I like to write both the things that are heavy on my heart, but also the joys. So because I was raised Unitarian, we have a long practice of joys and concerns. So how that works in a church setting is that people go up and they share their joy or they share their concern with the whole congregation. And I think both are important. I think to recognize that our hearts hold both joys and concerns. And I also think the sharing of them is an important part of that. I don't need to do that in a congregational setting. I am fine with that being a private practice that I do for myself. And I love it. I actually love it. I don't do it all the time. It's not a daily practice. It's when I have lunch with someone and then someone shares a concern that they're having or a trouble that they're going through, then the next day in the morning, I may write a little note to the universe about that. Or I might hold on to a whole bunch of things and then put them all on one. And it can be 2, 3, 4 times a week, once a week. I may not do it for a month because nothing is really heavy on my heart. So that's the nice thing about a practice like this, is that it's when you need it. It's not an have to or an obligation. It's a when you need it. And so I wonder if you would try this, or if you have a similar practice, or kind of what you do. I know for me, the Hello Universe box has made a significant difference in my mental health and my heart. I feel lighter, I feel brighter, I feel so much more in tune with both the people around me and the ability for the universe to help out. I believe in a world where good things happen and at a steady rate. And by putting things out in the universe, then that has an opportunity for good things to happen. If I hold on to it really tight and get really scared about things, it doesn't tend to work out that way. And so I've learned to open my hands and open my heart and put a pen to a piece of paper and put it in a box. So I am thrilled to share this little practice with you. It is something that helps me live a happier life, and I hope it works for you too. And grab a box, grab some paint, and make your own Hello Universe